All right, guys, I believe, yes, we are live with another PDOCS Livestream series episode. And as you guys might have saw in the post, whether you read the one on my personal timeline or the one that I dropped into the group, we are going to cover time management and or versus bandwidth capacity. As I mentioned again in my post, I think this is something that not a lot of business owners or gurus or experts talk about. And I really just wanted to share, my thoughts and my experiences on this through growing multiple businesses. So I want to go over, some of my thoughts on the topic. I want to talk about them a bit. I want to show you the different, again, the different levels or, kind of the evolution of how this progresses as your business grows, as you grow from a one-man band to a couple team members to a larger company with 20 plus employees, et cetera, et cetera. All these things change, and there's, subtle little intricacies and nuances that I think are very, very helpful. Some of the lessons I've had to learn the hard way, but maybe by, going over this stuff with you guys, it will help you kind of expedite or eliminate the challenges in that learning curve. Learn from my mistakes and what I'm going to break down here today. So again, I just went live maybe a minute and a half ago. If you guys are watching here, I'm streaming live to the PDOCS Facebook group. So if you have any comments or questions, please just drop a comment below. Let me know you're watching, your thoughts, anything you want me to tackle or discuss on these particular topics. And I'll be checking back at the comments a couple times periodically throughout today's, live stream episode. But again, let's just kind of start off with talking about the differences between the two, and then we will get into, I guess, everything else from there. Now, the image on my screen can be a little overwhelming, for lack of a better phrase. And while you're talking about time management, and I always kind of tie that in with efficiency, or you're talking about bandwidth capacity, they can both be overwhelming. So we see in the image on my screen, right, time management is kind of the capital, the biggest, letters in the middle of the screen, and the biggest words, I should say, right? But then there's all these other aspects of it, efficiency, exercising, right? Goals, productivity, management, process, scope, tools, techniques, planning, activities, right? And yada, yada, yada. And we could go on and on and on and overcomplicate this, or we can simplify it. And that's kind of what I try to do. And it kind of goes back to everything that the PDOCS method was founded on, taking things that people thought weren't scalable and systemizing them into systems and processes which can be implemented, again, at scale. So first, let's start off with just understanding time management. And very simple. I don't want to go into the complex definitions. I don't think we need to. And simple is just the way I do business. I like the simpler approaches on things. And even when it comes to definitions, right? So very simply, time management is the process of consciously planning and controlling time spent on specific tasks to increase how efficient you are. Again, the biggest correlation to time management is efficiency in terms of really gauging yourself. And what I would like to say when it comes to that is, number one, weighing busy versus productive. I know a lot of you guys in this group and a lot of my clients and a lot of my customers and a lot of people that follow me or that consume my content or that engage with me or shoot me DMs. I know how busy a lot of you guys are, but when we start to talk about productivity, it's not always there, right? So weighing that busy versus productive is always kind of a slippery slope and a task that not everybody really has a good grasp on. So number one is really batching out and managing your time, right? And that's all done through organization, calendar apps, scheduling, and I shouldn't have to go much in depth, but there is one tool that was really, really helpful for me, and I still go back and kind of quarterly or annually kind of reassess this. But something I have, and I'm going to drop the link below here after the live stream in this Facebook Live. So down in the comments below, the link to what I'm talking about. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But this link will already be down in the description if you're here watching on YouTube. But I'm going to give you the link that shows how to effectively batch out your time, how to really be able to identify what are called your power hours. For me, that's between about 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. And that's where I schedule all my really stuff where I like to say I have to be top of my game. My client work, my workshops, my live streams, right? Things like that. Almost all of my important stuff where I have to be on point. And not to say I'm not on point outside of those hours, but those are my power hours. That's where I know I show up best. I'm going to get the most productivity. My brain's just functioning the best. And I'm kind of hitting on all cylinders. Now, I know personally I'm kind of the exception to the rule in terms of, how much one person can do in a day. And that's not what this is necessarily about. But there's days I'll go back and look at my tasks and everything I did throughout the day and be like, damn, I just did a week's worth of work in one business day. Or I just did what 3 of my team members take 5 days to do, or whatever, right? And that's when just everything I'm operating like, I like to say, kind of in flow. I'm not really thinking, I'm just doing one meeting to the next, creating content, dropping posts, hiring new team members. It's all just kind of happening because it's all built into my system and my process and what I've developed over the years and what I'm trying to break down. And the earliest thing was, dialing in my power hours and my schedule when it came to that. So just to show you what I mean by that, again, just in real time, let's bring up my current calendar and where I'm at today. I don't need Facebook open on multiple platforms, I don't think. But let's go into my standard calendar. And again, this is actually not a very busy week. Wednesday, some openings. And guys, when I see openings, for me, that's actually time to do my alternate work. I might have, client review my copy, review one of my sales calls. I may have things that aren't, what I would call non-negotiable, pre-existing booked meetings or appointments already on my calendar. But trust me, when I see these gaps, like, Wednesday from 11 to 12 p.m., don't think that didn't get filled up with stuff. There's lots of things you can be doing, and I'll kind of talk about that again in the evolution. What I was doing when I first started out and I was a one-man band, or it was just Jesse and I before we had any ads or VAs or team members, as opposed to kind of where I fill my time with that now. But what I've always done is kind of batched out, my non-negotiable time, off sleep time, time with family, time away from my desk. And do I go over that or make exceptions? Yeah, here and there, but I stick to it pretty good. And if I'm going kind of beyond that and into my downtime, there's a very specific reason for it. It's not that I necessarily have to. It's more of a choice and an option. And again, we'll talk about these things some more. But really dialing in your power hours. So for me, it's important to do a bit of a morning routine. For me, that's usually reading. You don't see it blocked out here, but if you guys follow me or my stories or timeline or whatever, you see I'm pretty active, and I'm by no means a fitness junkie or in the model of, peak physical shape by any means, but I like to be active. I like to get out for walks, fresh air, exercise, burn some calories. But I think more than that, it's more about just the fresh air and the nature and, your eyes not staring at a computer screen like we do as entrepreneurs, especially digital marketing entrepreneurs or, people running digital service-based businesses. I find that's just kind of where I recharge my batteries. I do a lot of my best thinking. I sit outdoors during my walks and find some of the nice scenic areas, and that's where I sit and my head is clear and ideas come to me. That's where I do a lot of my writing. So everybody's going to have different things that work for them. For me, what I'm trying to show you is I need a balance of reading, of busy work, productive work, and again, I'm gonna go back into that in a moment, but also personal time, exercise, things that are good for both my physical and mental health, that help me show up and be the best for my clients, be the best for my team, be the best for my audience, right? And all those things. Those things, some people may think that a lot of people don't focus on that. Maybe not a lot of people do, or they're not important. Those are things that are really a point of emphasis for me. All those things I'm kind of always conscious of. How am I showing up for my clients? How am I showing up for my team? How am I showing up for my audience, even if you're not my client? Those things are kind of always on my radar and active. I don't want to say necessarily questions. The way I just worded them are questions. They're more thoughts when I say them to myself, right? But they're just active things that I'm always cognizant of and kind of mixing into everything I do. But again, organizing your calendar, batching out non-negotiable times, whether that's sleep, family, whatever, batching out times for personal development and reading, batching out times for exercise and things like that, which that just kind of fits into my calendar because most of my booking links, I now don't allow people to book before 10 a.m. So you'll see almost every day. That's why almost every day there's a gap between my 8:45 morning routine where I'm normally reading and then 10 a.m. is where on most days you see things start to pick up on my calendar. That little block, sure, I could go in there and chunk it out, and I probably should in the past had it labeled, but now I've just been on this routine for multiple years now where I kind of operate like a machine to a degree, and I only mean by that in an operational standpoint of routine. Routine is important for me in terms of what we're going to dive into a little more with bandwidth capacity, but it plays into time management as well. But back to the busy versus productive, I kind of got on a tangent and a little bit of a sidebar, for lack of a better phrase. But I would say the thing that was really important to me early on, and I did very, very active every quarter, and then as I got more and more, started growing, and I would say my daily duties and tasks and responsibilities have changed and evolved a little. I might do this biannually, twice a year, and then annually. But this is still something that's very, very important, and one of the simplest exercises you guys can do to really delineate busy versus productive work, right? I think that's very, very important, specifically early on when you're kind of a one-man band and you're doing everything. I'm writing the copy, I'm sending the emails, I'm doing friend requests, I'm actively in DM conversations, I'm doing my fulfillment, I'm running live workshops, I'm creating YouTube content, right? When you're doing all that stuff, it's very important to double down on productive work and then start to delegate or just push off the busy work that doesn't lead to production. And how do you really know that? A simple exercise I like to do is called the red dot, green dot exercise. So you need to map your activities, and I would say Monday through Friday, go back each day. I'm not saying wait till the end of the week. Go back to the end of Monday and go back and look at your calendar, your emails, your DMs, your social media, whatever you're doing, and literally write down every task you did. Sent friend requests, sent DMs, wrote 3 posts, wrote a new email body, had 2 sales calls, had a one-on-one client fulfillment session, right? Write down everything we're doing every single day. Then I would wait all the way until the end of the week till I have about 5 days worth of data in front of me, and then I put down 2 pens right next to me, a red one and a green one, and I go back and I look on that list and I put a red dot next to every activity that didn't actually directly drive revenue into the business, or revenue generating activities as I like to call them. So a sales call, even if you didn't close a deal, that's still a revenue generating activity. I would never put a red dot next to a sales call. That we might need to get better at it, we might need to get better at conversions, but those are always revenue generating activities. So are, believe it or not, a lot of your DMs, a lot of your social media posts and content. Now, you really need to gauge if you're doing these effectively and they're leading to revenue or not. So that's a little different. You either have to know, do I need to go in and revamp my strategy and approach with this method? Or, in some cases, just certain things we do that are never really those green dot revenue generating activity. So again, I go through all my activity for the week, Monday first, with a red pen and a green pen, red dot next to each activity I did that didn't directly lead to revenue or isn't a revenue generating activity, and then green dot next to each one that is. And simply look at that chart at the end of the week, and your following week, I tell you, at least for 14 days, try this, which is 10 business days, right? 2 weeks. Just take all those green dot activities and double down on those. Put more time and more effort into those, and either delegate or push down the red dot activities. Believe it or not, they're probably not that important if they're not driving revenue. So that's just one very basic exercise that anybody can do anytime. But again, the more organized you are, the easier it is to do. I'll be honest with you. There's days I think about back to what I did every day. And again, if I don't go back and look at my calendar and through each platform's inbox, whether that be my social media, my private school communities, my DMs on Insta and Facebook, wherever I'm at, if I don't go back and really look through all those, some days it's very, very hard for me to just sit down and remember everything I did today, because there's very many days that I'm doing so much, right? But I'm doing it within bandwidth capacity, and I'm doing it at a level where it is productive and leads to revenue and in an efficient manner. Everything's going to keep tying back down to that: productivity, efficiency, right? Those are all parts of time management. Now, when it comes more into the bandwidth capacity of things, and again, I think we can look at that in a way where our brain gets really, really overwhelmed, which this image on my screen kind of portrays, right? You start thinking, what do I have time for? What do I have space for? For instance, as a business owner, the first thing I always think of is how many clients can I handle and take on and still give the proper attention to get results. One of the big bandwidth issues we have as business owners, whether an individual or as we grow, is we're always looking for the revenue and the new clients, but we don't always make sure our internal structures and fulfillment and, again, bandwidth capabilities, whether that's you running all the fulfillment yourself, whether you have a team, whether you need to hire people, usually those have to grow kind of hand in hand, which really ties in to my live stream from 2 weeks ago, I believe it was. If not, it was a month ago. You can go back in the group and check it out, or it's up on my YouTube channel, where I kind of went through, some of the techniques and some of the different strategies and approaches, just with, I don't know, I don't want to word that. I'm trying to figure out how to word this without diving back into that whole exercise, because that's something I'm not trying to do now. But basically, I was kind of weighing options and talking a little about different business models, different things that are effective. But I was talking about as you grow and evolve, how kind of business changes, right? And that certainly correlates in a portion of that, a big portion, certainly correlates into kind of time management and bandwidth capacity. But what I was saying when we were talking about growth versus scale, basically, and again, I know if I start to say that, I'm going to get too deep into it. But there's a big difference between growth and scale, and we noticed in that live stream I ran a couple weeks ago, when I was giving you examples and kind of teaching a little bit on that there are reinvestments into the business in terms of sometimes monetary, a lot of times resources, personnel, things like that need to grow with the business. So when it comes to bandwidth capacity, really identify if you're in growth or scale mode, and go back and watch that live stream if you're not sure. When I say that, if you don't know the difference, you don't know which one you're in, go back and watch that live stream so you have a lot more understanding. And when you're in that one, you're going to see in that live stream what to expect in terms of internal investment, whether that be time, money, hiring, locations, softwares, whatever that may be. A lot of times, to keep at a healthy bandwidth capacity, both for yourself and your own sanity and your own physical and emotional and mental well-being, but also from a perspective of serving your clients, your audience, your team properly, you have to have the proper surroundings. So as you grow, sure, that gets more challenging to an extent, and there's also aspects of it that gets easier. Like, let me give you one example. For instance, I'm kind of, when it comes to like time management and bandwidth capacity, and within my companies and my organizations, and let's go with Audience Lab, our largest company with over 20 team members now, I am kind of looked at in that company from everybody, my colleagues and co-owners, my team members, managers, newer support employees. I'm kind of looked at in a certain sense, especially the guys that have been working with me longest, and more so my partners, as the kind of reliable, responsible one. Not to say they aren't, but more so when it comes to shit's hitting the fan, let's put this in front of Ray. He'll get to the bottom of it and get some fast action points and get it addressed. And because that is mostly due to my other two partners, Bandwidth is at capacity, and they are already kind of, again, you don't really need to subject that with another verbiage, but they're at capacity with what they can handle. And I don't want to take them away from, I want Adam just doing what he's great at. I don't want him focusing on client problems, or this big thing's blowing up, or this one account's not getting a result. Like, I don't want him taken out of in the back working on great stuff in the lab. What does Adam do? He creates everything that you see within Audience Lab. That whole platform, if you're at all familiar, was once just kind of in Adam's head as an idea, and I just want him to keep creating, and us as business partners and team members supporting him to make that vision come to reality in terms of the platforms. I mean, the features you see on our platform, our great audience builder, our updated historical accuracy of our data, the updated match rates that we hit when we match that in the campaigns, having an enrichment feature, having an identity resolution tool. Like, I just want Adam in the lab creating great new products, great new innovations, and then teaching people how to first use them, and how our sales team can go sell them, and then go back in the lab and rinse and repeat. I don't want him in other areas. Same with Jesse. Jesse's in the back end. He's a CFO. He has to negotiate with all of our vendors, and believe me, being a large multi-million-dollar data company, our vendors aren't cheap. So having somebody with a great business acumen that can go in there and haggle and get costs down is a big deal in business. He handles all the payroll, all the LLC aspects, all the legal, right? So all that side of the business that, number one, I don't want to deal with. Number two, I don't even think I have the skill set to deal with. Number three, if that was my role in this business, I probably wouldn't still be here, because I would be fed up with it. I don't like those sides of the business. Jesse does. He's a beast at him, and he kills it. So I don't want to take him away from that stuff to focus on this stuff. So it comes back to me and then my team around me. Whether I have to get personally involved or have team members and heads of department handle it, that would be situational, and very rarely do I get personal involved. I get my account managers on it, and they only reach back out to me with high, sensitivity touch point issues, let's say, where they need to get me involved. So again, that's just one example. Now, I kind of got a little sidetracked there. I went into two things, but the team always looks at me for kind of responsible and reliable type of things. And hey, we just need this done. Let's get Ray involved. And whether it's him or the right team member, he'll make sure it gets addressed. Number two, the thing that's gotten a lot easier as I grow, my team almost always looks for me for recruitment. Why? I'm one of the ones that's most, outgoing, one of the ones posting content the most, one of the ones on our team growing my network the most. And although I don't have a huge following, I don't know, 5 or 6,000 followers on Facebook, nothing crazy, I've grown my network the right way. I've taken the quality over quantity approach. I deny and decline more friend requests, far more than I accept, because I only want the right people coming into my network, and I have a very specific way of how I look at and vet that. Point being, now anytime we need a position, and probably some of you guys watching see this, I like to go drop a lot of the opportunities, especially when I feel like it's in some of your guys' skill set here in the PDOCS group. Matter of fact, great example, I just dropped another one last night because we're looking to bring on a new editor as our social media and content department is growing. We can't just have an in-house person that's half-ass at it doing it for us. We need somebody that can dedicate the right time, and they have a system and a process, and that's their expertise. So we bring on people. Why I go to say that is because I put out a lot of content. I seem to be very relatable and likable to the most of the people in my network. I just go posts, hey guys, we're hiring for this. Hey guys, my company's growing like crazy, we're looking for this. Almost instantly. Now, yeah, I'll just go with this before I sidebar. Almost instantly in these cases, I have either people raising their hands saying, yeah, that's what I do. I'd love to work with you guys. I'm a fit for that. That's right within my realm of expertise, my skill set, or they're tagging somebody else that does. And guys, there's a lot of times, there's probably only 50% of the times we need somebody, I even go create a post. The other 50% of the time, just from my network and my constant conversations and always being out there and doing what I do organically, still hopping on sales calls, director of client relations, working closer with our clients than most people on our team. I have very direct connections in the DMs, so almost, I would say, 50-50. About half the time when somebody on my team comes to me, hey, Ray, we need to hire for this. Do you know anybody? I already have one, if not more people in my mind that I can just go right in the DMs and hit with a quick message and see if they're looking for an opportunity. And I already know that they're interested and it fits their skill set. It's just, are they available right now? Or did somebody else already pick them up? Or did they launch something else? Or what's their available time and bandwidth capacity to work with me, right? That's really the only, disseminating factor in that case, if that's the right word. I don't even know. But yeah, so that's kind of gotten easier and easier. When I was smaller and there was only a couple of us, recruiting and finding the right talent was a little more challenging. I had to kind of, you had to go through the trials and errors of it. You had to work with some bad fits. You had to hear people's bullshit stories to now know where I can point those out and see those right away. And as my, I don't want to say success has grown, but the time of success and the time that I've been in this space and been able to do it consistently and keep putting up numbers and keep filling my calendar and keep growing companies and keep having roles to offer, I get more credibility within my network. So when I go post something, they're like, hey, working within Ray's ecosystem, it's actually legit in what he says, as opposed to a lot of these other people that promise you a role where your time is filled up or you're paid X amount and then it gets to payday and all of a sudden, that employer or that particular partner ghosts you, right? I've just heard all kinds of horror stories, and I've read through a lot of that trial and error myself to the point where now I know how to kind of omit those things, first and foremost. But, secondly, and more to that, it's much more effortless, right? There's no better way to say it, and that all came from growing my network, right? I mean, that goes back to the saying we probably all heard since we got into entrepreneurship. We all hear great quotes, the Zig Ziglars, and I could drop a million influencers, but in terms of what I was saying there specifically, oh shoot, hold on, I'm sorry, I'm getting a call here on my cell. Sorry guys, let me just swipe that out. Sorry, my daughter was just calling me, and I will call her back. I'm not going to stop in the middle of the live stream. But now I just kind of drew a brain fart as to where I was. I was just talking about a quote, and when that call popped up and I saw my daughter and took a second, I totally forgot about what quote I was just going into. So I'm sure it'll pop back up to me momentarily. Oh yeah, we were talking about networks, right? We've all heard your network is your net worth, and they correlate, and that does become very, very true. I think that's always been true to an extent. In my eyes, it becomes truer once you get a little more established, right? Even if you have a solid network, but you're not quite yet established or credible, yes, your network is still going to be helpful, but it usually doesn't lead to actual dollars and net worth and revenue and closed deals till you have a certain level of credibility within the marketplace. Once you get past that, and that just comes from consistency, right? Always back to what I talk about in my CIA method: consistency, implementation, and accountability. So when you're consistently putting out content, setting out new friend requests, inviting and accepting new people that fit your criteria into your network, posting about crazy wins you got for a client, posting about new job opportunities, posting about a new strategy or approach that worked for you, showing them how you fill up your team's calendar with 90 appointments a week like we do. Like all those things throughout a certain course of time consistently is going to gain credibility, right? So that's why we said people are like, well, it's very hard to gain credibility. No, if you're consistent and all you need to do is really document what you're doing and show the process, that in itself will create credibility in a very short period of time. Again, if you're consistent with doing that, right? That's kind of the determining factor there is back to the consistency and implementation, right? So going into bandwidth, as I mentioned and as we talked about, the simple definition of that very clearly, guys, is the energy or mental capacity required to deal with a situation. Now, for this particular call and what I'm covering, that's more geared around business and growth. But just think about that one more time. It's a little different than time management, just definitionally itself, right? The energy or mental capacity required to deal with a situation, as opposed to the process of consciously planning and controlling time spent on specific tasks to increase your efficiency, or how efficient you are, however you want to word that, right? So they are two separate things, highly relatable, and they correlate very closely, but they're definitely their own beasts. And again, some of my best tips are great organization, and I'm going to drop down some great tools in terms of how to batch out your power hours and identify them, how to block off your calendar properly so you can get the most effectiveness or efficiency and effectiveness out of your time management and out of your bandwidth capacity. And also, the very simple exercise that a lot of people just will never do that I mentioned earlier in the call is that red dot, green dot exercise. If you simply take your data from Monday through Friday for the week and do it exactly as I laid it out, and then double down the following couple weeks on green dot activities and delegate or push off the red dot activities, I guarantee you you're going to see a jump in production overall. Usually that means revenue and bottom line, but sometimes, depending on your offer, could just be more opt-ins to the current webinar or challenge you're running, right? Could be a number of things, but usually those directly correlate and tie into revenue into the company. Let me take a little minute here and go in and check and see if I have any comments in the chat. I've been sitting here talking for quite a while. JP picked up on the Zig Ziglar reference, totally. He's one of my favorite, right, for just quotes. That's why that was the first one that came to mind there. But we've all seen so many different influencers and gurus and entrepreneurs with their quotes and their sayings and stuff. I do crazy stuff, make bath bombs, jewelry, play with my houseplants, etc. There you go. Whatever gives you more of that emotional recharge. That might be the same to you, Rebecca, as it is to me in terms of just getting out and getting fresh air and recharging my batteries, right? Sounds like just by nature you're kind of a crafty, creative person, where I'm that in a sense, but not in an artistic sense. I can't draw, I can't sculpt, I can't write neat. Just my neatness, especially with artistic skills, is not there. So when you don't kind of have that naturally, you tend to not enjoy it quite as much as the people who I would consider more crafty. I think there's a difference, creative and crafty. I'd consider myself creative, but not very crafty. Sounds like you kind of fall into both of those buckets, which is cool. So, guys, as I talked about a bit, everything kind of, again, wraps back into organization, efficiency, utilizing those exercise. But yourself, are you similar to me in the sense that, like, if all your activities and tasks and duties aren't done, you're not done for the day? Or do you just stop when you kind of, like a 9 to 5, when your day ends, you punch a clock and you're out? So that comes back into, like, that whole reliable and responsible part. I know I have to get X amount of duties and tasks and calls and meetings done. And if it gets to a certain time of day and that stuff's not done, maybe it's just more about the internal work ethic and responsibility and reliability. But I keep telling myself I'm not done. Matter of fact, I was texting my buddy the other day around 7 o'clock at night, and he's like, "Oh, you're still working?" I'm like, "Well, I don't really have to be. It's kind of by choice, but I also know whatever I don't get done today is just going to get pushed in tomorrow and the next week." And I don't like that. I like to finish tasks tasks on a timely manner and get them done while it's in the forefront and while it's fresh, rather than pushing it off a day or two. Then that steamrolls into, now my Friday is mobbed because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday I decided, oh, I'm not going to put in that little extra effort and I'm going to push it off. And now Friday, my day where I have it set up specifically to be light, and that's the way I set up my organization, my power hours, and my schedule. That won't still work out like planned if I'm not responsible and reliable throughout the week at getting everything done. So I've always been one that just tells myself, if all this isn't done, my day's not done. So as I was messaging my buddy, I was like, nah, I'll probably be here another hour. And sure enough, that day it was about 8:15. I shut off and walked away from my computer. And again, everybody's wired different. I don't think there's any right or wrong between the two. And I'm not saying when I do that, I sacrifice my personal time. I make a conscious effort. I batch things out, and I set myself up to know that my downtime and my off time and my family time and my sleep time may be adjusted a little that day. So it's not like I just on a whim say, okay, I'm going to work late and it's going to push everything else back. I actually bump that into my schedule and change things around and set the expectations. That way I can still stay in a routine. It's not like I'm just changing things because I'm working later today. Actually, my routine just changed slightly for this day, but it's all still there. The reading still gets done. The exercise still gets done. The sleep time, the family time, all the meetings, the client calls, the team calls, it still all gets done, and it still keeps me in the routine. So again, give me a few minutes after today's live stream, and if you were watching live, I appreciate the comments and the engagement. If you want that sheet, or you guys have never had access to it, I'm going to go drop the sheet that you can effectively batch out your power hours. You can reverse engineer KPIs. Maybe I'll do a little workshop running through that sheet in more depth, but I'll give it to you guys now. It's pretty self-explanatory, but the KPI reverse engineer spreadsheet within there is really cool. Let's just say I want to make 10K this month and my offer is 2,500. You put that in and it's going to reverse engineer all your metrics to show you how many closed deals, which means how many conversations, which means how many emails or DMs. And then you really set yourself up looking at it in front of you with all those KPIs reverse engineered and staring you in the face. And you start to say, is this realistic or not? Like, if it ends up at the end of the day showing that you have to send 1,032 friend requests and another 1,400 DMs, that's probably not realistic for anybody in a week or a month or whatever timeline that the KPI sheet is set up to. I believe it's monthly, but I don't have it up in front of me. Might be weekly, but whatever. What I'm saying is, let's get realistic expectations. And by doing that, you might realize, oh shoot, I can never hit this revenue threshold unless I start charging more. So how do I solve a bigger problem so I can do that? Reach out, let us help you with that. We're very good at offer creation and showing people how they can offer more value to the market and ultimately charge more. But sometimes that's what you have to change. Sometimes you may have to say, hey, it's just not realistic. I don't know how to offer more value right now. I'm not going to reach out to Ray and his team and ask for help. I need to really lower my revenue expectation because I'm never going to get that amount of DMs and messages out, and I don't feel right, or I don't feel confident, or I just don't feel like people will pay me if I raise my prices. So although in your own mind you may exclude that option for those reasons I just said, or the other ones you have, I would tell you, I can guarantee you you're wrong, and almost anybody watching this can charge more by making a couple subtle tweaks to their offer. I always say I love to pressure test them. The 4 Ps that go into an offer from my perspective is how it's priced, positioned, packaged, and the perceived value seen by the person on the other end of the sales call, by the prospect or the potential client. So do you have those all fleshed out? Or are those pressure tested in your offer? Do you know exactly how your stuff is packaged, positioned, priced? Do you know the perceived value? You should know just when you're having sales call with prospects. Do their jaws drop and they're like, oh my God, I need this? Or are they like, yeah, that'd be kind of nice, but I've seen it, this looks like Joe's thing and Bob's thing and the thing the guy hit me up about last week. There's a big difference between perceived value when you're talking to clients, when you have something that's commoditized and everybody else can do, or you have something that stands out and actually offers unique value, right? So again, I'm going down tangents about all kinds of things, reverse engineering KPIs, offer creation, as I tend to do, because I kind of have a good amount of expertise in multiple areas and have worked with a lot of clients closely, and still in my businesses in these departments, it kind of fires me up. So once I start talking about it, I end up going off on a tangent. It's as I say, just as much as I'm a fast talker, my tangents are both a blessing and a curse. I come up with some great ideas, but sometimes I get off track. So that's what we're trying to avoid, getting off track with routines, with schedules, with batching out power hours, with blocking out times, with routines, and everything I mentioned. So that's what I have to cover for today, guys. Again, If you're watching on Facebook, give me about 10 minutes and I will have those resources down in the comments below this live stream. If you're watching on YouTube, they're already going to be down there in the description. Everybody have a great day. I'll go back and check the comments one more time, and I'll reply to those outside of the live stream here shortly, guys. Now, it would help if I could just find my normal screen back. Where's Facebook? The joys of having about 17 browsers and images and 10 other things open. There we go, end live video. We'll catch you next time, guys. See you in 2 weeks. Thursday, 2 p.m., 2 weeks from now. Same time, same bad channel.